Welcome to Far From Blake. This is a movie review channel where we're going to be going over reviews, rankings, rants, the whole nine. We're going to be talking about major franchises like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Spider-Man, Batman, MCU, whatever you want, we got it. But today, we are starting off with a big one. Halloween 1978, the original. Let's go. This movie sucks. Okay, now that I have your attention, today we're going to be talking about Halloween the original, 1978, directed by John Carpenter himself. What has not been said about this movie that could have been said by me, but it's not going to be said by me, and... Okay, the point is, whatever I'm going to say today is not going to be anything special, it's not going to be anything new. The whole point why we're here is because we love Michael Myers, we love Halloween, and I love talking about it. So let's get it. I'll be honest, it's really hard to talk about this movie. Why? For a few different reasons. One, if you bash this movie even in the slightest, I've seen online, as a fan, watching other YouTube reviewers, other people that I look up to that make me want to make this channel, people like Cody Leach, Drum Dum, Sean Chandler talks about movies, I can keep going, the list goes on and on. If you say anything, even the slightest bash to the original Halloween, you can bash almost any other movie, but if you bash this movie, it's donezo. So, I'm going to try my best not to piss anyone off, but at the same time, I'm not going to say every single second of the movie is perfect. So let me start you off right there. I'm going to be 100% honest on this channel as much as possible about my thoughts, my opinions on whatever movie I'm talking about. Okay, for starters, this movie is just so hard to talk about because we've all seen it, we all love it. We've either grew up with it as a little kid. I grew up watching these movies at 3 years old. I know, that's crazy. It makes no sense. I watched this since I was 3 years old with my cousins, and it was just something we saw at a young age. So it's like, how am I supposed to talk about a movie that we already know exactly what happens, and we know there's a million movies afterwards of Michael Myers doing his thing? So to get myself in that mindset of rewatching this movie and be like, okay, what if I've never seen this before? What if I'm watching this for the very first time? And that's the lens I want to try to tackle this movie from, because that's the best way to really understand why it was as critically acclaimed as it is. If it is critically acclaimed, I don't know, I'm just throwing out big words here. The point is, people love this movie, and it's a horror classic. And let's try to figure out why. Simplicity. Simplicity is the most talked about thing when it comes to this movie. And on rewatch, when you've already seen it a million times, sometimes that simplicity to me can get boring from time to time because I'm like, all the other sequels or even other movies like Friday the 13th, whatever, have so much more kills, so much more going on. But when you really bring it back to the very beginning, you bring it back to the idea of, okay, this movie came out before Friday the 13th, before Scream, before Freddy and Chucky and all that. And it's like, there's just this guy with a white mask who's hiding in the shadows, incognito, hiding in plain sight, hiding behind bushes, and it's just creepy to think about. It's the definition of a real stalker killer. And we just look at him like, Michael Myers, Michael Myers, Michael Myers. But when you watch that first movie and you really think back, you're not knowing, because they had no idea they were going to make a giant franchise and it was going to be this whole thing that we're talking about 40 years later. It's crazy. It's crazy, you know. He just goes around hiding, and honestly, the big thing that I feel like it's talked about, but maybe not enough to its credit, I feel like the main reason why this movie works is John Carpenter's score, which that I think everyone already knows, but most importantly, Dr. Loomis. Dr. Loomis hypes up Michael Myers so much throughout this movie. Without Dr. Loomis going around saying, he's got the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, death has come to your little town. You know, without those lines, it's like, would we really buy that this stalker killer is as big of a deal as he turns out to be? No, we would just look at him like, okay, this is some crazy guy with a mask following him around. But it's because Dr. Loomis hypes him up, puts him on cloud nine. He's like, he is the embodiment of evil. He is purely evil. I mean, he really hypes him up to a different level throughout this movie. So you feel that from throughout the entire movie, no matter all the like little transitions. And like I said, the simplicity of it is the camera just follows Laurie around as they're just walking through a town. They're not really doing much. There's nothing really going on. There's not even that much dialogue half the time throughout the movie. It's just them walking. And John Carpenter does a good job directing the camera in a certain way to where you're always following. You're always moving your eyes. It's not just like a blank shot and it's stopped there. It just follows you along. And it's like telling the story without really talking about or doing anything. But you know what's happening. It's just the directing of John Carpenter where you know where the story's taking you. You know where it's building. And if you get lost, that's where Dr. Loomis comes in a random scene where he's just like, evil! It's kind of like he's just like typing it up the whole time. And he's keeping your focus on, okay, there's a dark, evil presence that is building. And it's coming, whether you like it or not. And that is the boogeyman himself, Michael Myers. About 2 pet peeves I have in the movie. 1 that's kind of bad. 2 is just like kind of just a pet peeve, and it's really not the big deal, but it's something I notice almost every time I watch it. The first one is the death of Annie. Very weak. The way she screams, it drags a little too long. Maybe if it went quicker, it would not stand out as much. But it's just kind of ridiculous. It's kind of over the top, and it's kind of, for the way the rest of the movie's directed and the way the patience of pacing, the first on-screen kill of Michael Myers is kind of, it's just weak. I don't know what to say. I didn't even know until I started watching movie reviews of the Halloween franchise where apparently Michael pulls out a knife at the last second and gets her. I just thought he choked her to death. I guess he threw out a knife too, but it's so subtle you don't even realize it. And to me, even knowing that, it doesn't make it any better. The next one is when Bob carries Linda out of the car into the house. Brings her all the way to the house and doesn't shut the door, doesn't shut the car door. It's like, what are you doing? Close the car door. Michael Myers is out here. He can go into your car. Do you not know that? But, I mean, it's not that big a deal, but every single time I watch, I'm like, I don't blame the movie. Maybe they do that on purpose, a little whatever. I blame the character, and I'm just like, Bob, close the door. That pisses me off. Earlier I said there was 2 pet peeves. I was wrong. There's actually 3. And this one is the one I actually do hate. But it's like one you kind of put past because they didn't know they're going to make a whole franchise. And they really build that narrative, I guess, even more so afterwards. I hate that you see Michael's face at the end. You can justify it however you want. To me, no matter how much I watch it, I'm just like, bro, why did they do that? The whole thing was him being mysterious, and even make it mysterious at the end. There was no point to show his face. It's interesting, the way he looked. I guess. I don't know. To me, it's just better never to show his face. They started to show it a little bit in Halloween 5, but it's kind of blurred. It's kind of, you couldn't really see. This one, you kind of straight up see his face, and it's just kind of like, man, I just wish they didn't do that. But, they didn't know they were going to make, 25 million more movies and where they don't show his face. So it is what it is, but, that always bothers me every time I watch it. Another really cool thing about the movie that gets talked about, but that's something I want to emphasize on, is the very ending is, Michael gets shot, goes off the ledge, and disappears. And Loomis looks out in despair, and he's like, bro, like, where is he? And Laurie's crying, like, the boogeyman, that was the boogeyman. And you just hear John Carpenter's score, you hear his breathing, and then they give you, like, little cuts of the entire time of Haddonfield, all the little spots that Michael basically terrorized. And it finishes off with the house. Finished off with Michael Myers' house. It started with Michael's house, with him as a 6-year-old child. Now it finishes it off with the house at the end, which is, it just ends up more very creepy, mysterious, like, okay, this guy really is the embodiment of the boogeyman. In conclusion, Dr. Loomis, he makes this movie. Laurie, she does her part. I don't think there's anything that spectacular about what she does, and I know that's controversial and probably needs a longer segment to talk about, but I will build that more in probably throughout this franchise review series. And I'll probably go more in depth by the end of Halloween Ends. And I'm hoping that one's really good. This one, I like her performance here. It's fine. It's not my favorite of her throughout the franchise. I'm not going to say which one is, when we get to that movie, I will let you know which one is my favorite Laurie Strode. This isn't my worst. I don't think it's the worst Laurie Strode. It's just, it does its job. It's good. It's there. But to me, Dr. Loomis is great. Michael's great. The Mask is great. John Carpenter's score is great. The pacing's great. Nitpicking, you feel like maybe you would want maybe one more kill earlier, but that's just not what this movie was about. So, if you want more kills, you got the sequels, or you can watch every Jason movie. There's a million of them in there. Thanks for watching. That's pretty much it for today. I'm sure I'll watch back and be like, man, I should have talked about this. I should have talked about that. It's like, I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of things I didn't talk about, but like, we've all seen this movie. We all love this movie. Fun fact, it may or may not be my favorite in the franchise. What does that mean? I don't know. You'll have to stick around for the rankings. If you happen to find this video before my rankings, follow along to the journey, subscribe, so then you can find out my Halloween ranking. Because ultimately, that's why we're here, right? We like talking about the reviews, but we want to hear everyone rank their Halloween movies. And trust me, that's where we're going to get to.